When this poet was born, his mother went into a fit of depression because she wanted a girl. In fact, she didn't name her son for 6 months when friends put names into a hat. They drew out the name Edwin. The woman who put the name in the hat was from Arlington, Massachusetts, and the young boy became Edwin Arlington Robinson and went on to become one of the greatest American poets of the first half of the 20th century. Edwin Arlington Robinson grew up in this house during the bustling Victorian age. His family aspired to the upper class. He was shy and gawky and showed much less promise than his brothers. At the Gardiner Public Library, Don Thistle told me how EAR found subject matter all over town.
To read his poems about these individuals in a small town, whether he denied that Gardiner was ever Tilbury Town or not, it had to have been. It was the same Water Street that I walked down, and the same shops and buildings. New, different merchants, different year, but he wrote about my town.
His life was filled with sorrow. His best friend died at 11, then his father passed away, and in 1896, his mother died of a horrible disease known as black diphtheria. This is Gay Grant.
The only one in the family who truly seemed to understand him dies of this tragic disease, to the point where the 3 boys had to actually put their own mother's body in the casket, put it on a wagon, and carry it 150 feet up into the cemetery and bury her themselves, because no one would come near the house. The minister read the prayers through a window. It was the ultimate in tragedy.
Meant as a surprise for his mother, his self-published first book, The Torrent and the Night Before, arrived a few days after her passing. It would begin the slow, steady ascension of his career. An early supporter was President Teddy Roosevelt.
Hermit bought a copy of the book to give to his dad, and Roosevelt said, "This man needs to be able to write, and so I'll give him a throwaway job, government job." So Robinson was able to focus on his poetry.
EAR's poems often relate to the misfortunes of his life. His greatest love, Emma, married his brother Herman, who lost the family fortune, became an alcoholic, and died. EA commemorated his life in his famous poem, Richard Cory, a poem on which Paul Simon based his hit record of the 1960s. An autobiographical work is entitled Miniver Cheevy.
Miniver scorned the gold he sought, but sore annoyed was he without it. Miniver thought and thought and thought and thought about it. Miniver Cheevy, born too late, scratched his head and kept on thinking. Miniver coughed and called it fate and kept on drinking.
His papers are in special collections at Colby. Here, Pat Burdick showed me some of his personal effects, including his 3 Pulitzer Prizes in poetry, one in 1922, 1925, and 1928.
Most of his poems, I would say, are written in a very accessible way, so that when he was taught in the public schools, they were the kinds of poems that children could understand and they could memorize, and they told stories.
His poetry spoke to an America which increasingly wanted to challenge the status quo. EA lived a somewhat lonely bohemian lifestyle in New York, developing a wide circle of literary friends. As his poems fade from the literary scene, his thousands of letters give us insight to other leading artists of the day.
A lot of times they're coming for the incoming letters, and so it's other people in literary circles writing to Robinson. And so those kinds of cross-exchanges of letters are what scholars really are focusing on now.
This is his teething cup.
Oh my goodness. The little boy who cut his teeth on this cup was awkward and shy, but became a major literary figure in the 1920s. A prolific smoker, he died of cancer at the age of 65 in 1935. His Gardiner home was designated a National Historic Landmark in 1971. Just for fun, I Googled America's Top 100 Poets the other night. E.A. Robinson came in at number 61.